Hey guys, welcome to the 60th C programming tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to begin looking at some of the math functions that the C standard library has to offer. But before we can actually begin looking at any of these functions, we first need to go up to the top right here and include the math header file. So I'm going to say include math.h. Alright, so now we just have access to all the math functions inside of this file right here. Alright, and the first math function that we're going to be looking at is POW, or POW. And this function will basically just allow you to raise some number to a certain power. So let's just say that we had an integer variable right here called I, and I'll just set it equal to 4. Well, if we wanted to raise I to the third, or cube it, we can go ahead and do that using the POW function. So I can just say POW, and this function takes two double parameters. The first parameter is the base, so I, and then the second parameter is the exponent. And like I said, we're going to be raising I to the third, so we can just go ahead and put a 3 right there. Alright, and this POW function, like all math functions, returns a double. So if I wanted to print out whatever this function returns onto my screen, what I'd have to do is just say printf, and like I said, this returns a double, so we have to do %.2f. And you don't need this .2f right here, but all this is going to do is just round this return value to the hundredths place so that there are only 2 digits after the decimal place. Alright, so then I'm just going to put a comma here and close this parenthesis. Alright, so when I run this, I should just get a 64 out onto my screen since 4 cubed is 64. So I run this and perfect, 64. Alright. Now, since this second parameter right here is a double, what I can actually do is raise this number to a fraction. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and raise this to the 1/2 and run this, and I should get 2, since 4 to the 1/2 is 2. So I run this and perfect, I get 2 out onto my screen. But let's say I were to go right here and raise I to the 1,000th. Well, if I run this, I get INF. And basically what this means is that the value calculated in this operation right here was too large to store in a double, since this function returns a double. So let's just say that we wanted to check and make sure that whatever number this function returns was valid. Well, what we can go ahead and do right here is just delete this for right now, and what I can do is just say double ands equals, and then POW, and then whatever number I want to raise to something, so the base, I, and then the exponent, again, I'll just make it 1,000. So now whatever this function returns is going to be stored in answer. And if the value calculated from this operation is too large to fit in a double, this function will return a constant called huge val. So what I can do is say if ands equals huge underscore val, then I know that the value calculated from this operation right here was too large to fit in a double. So what I can do is just print out onto the screen saying that the value calculated was too large to fit in a double. Alright, and then I'll end the line. And then right after this, I'm just going to say return 0, so that if this does in fact return huge value, meaning that the value calculated was too large to fit inside of a double, then it'll just stop right here and it'll never print out the return value onto the screen. Alright, but if this returns a valid value, I do want it to print out the answer onto the screen, so I'm just going to say again down here, %.2f, end the line, and then I'll just go ahead and print out onto my screen ands. So when I run this, I should get this string out onto my screen because 4 to the 1,000th is too large to store inside of a double. So I run this and I get that string. Perfect. But if I were to raise it to the 10th and run this, I should get the answer out onto the screen, since 4 to the 10th will fit inside of a double. So I run this and perfect. Alright. And all of the math functions will return this huge value constant if the value calculated is too large to fit inside of a double. And like I said before, every math function returns a double. Alright? And the next math function that we're going to be looking at is just called sqrt. And this function will basically just get the square root of some number. So this function just takes a single parameter, the number that we want to get the square root of. So if I go right here and just pass through I and run this, I should just get a 2 out onto my screen since the square root of 4 is 2. So I run this and I get a 2 out onto my screen. If I were to change the value of I to something like 64 and run this, I should get an 8 out onto my screen since the square root of 64 is 8. So I run this and I get 8. Perfect. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'm probably just going to finish up looking at the rest of the math functions. So, see you guys.